Self-discipline is the ultimate form of self-love. I am so passionate about self-discipline and helping others become disciplined. So I'm really, really excited about this episode because I'm going to go into the ins and outs of the 6 things that I believe every disciplined person does and how you can become more disciplined. Discipline is one of those things that I see people talk negatively about all the time. It is one of the top things my clients say. I'm not disciplined as I should be. I'm not disciplined. I'm not this. I'm not that. And it all comes down to them not being consistent and not having the discipline in the moments when they truly, truly need it. So I'm someone who has been coined as very highly disciplined. My husband always talks about how disciplined I am. My friends talk about it. My teachers have talked about it. Co-workers, past employers have talked about it. And the reason I am so disciplined is truly because I realized these 6 things that I'm going to go into in today's podcast. You see what I did there? That was a little hook. So hello. Welcome back to the Fire Inside podcast. I am your host, Sade Kelly. I am a time management coach, and I'm super passionate about helping you master your time so you can manage your work, wellness, and relationships peacefully. This podcast is all about helping you learn the personal development, time management, and the different tools, hacks, and tips so that you can level up and become your highest, best self. I am so passionate about this because we truly only have one life to live. And I want to make sure that I live my best, ultimate, the greatest life that I'm supposed to live. I want to make sure I am living out all of God's plan for me. And I want to help other people do that same thing. This is something I've always been inspired to do. And I've always wanted to inspire others for as long as I can remember to live ultimately, to know that they deserve a great life and to know that they deserve to invest in themselves, to show up for themselves, and to do whatever it takes to be disciplined so that they can actually enjoy the fruits of their labor and actually put in the labor long enough to get those fruits in the first place. So let's get into the 6 things disciplined people do. So the first thing that disciplined people do is they take responsibility for their actions. Now, I know I'm going to make some people mad. I know that when you hear this, you hear that you have to let go of the victim mentality. You have to let go of woe is me. You have to let go of XYZ excuse and stop calling it a reason because it's probably an excuse. Now, one of my biggest pet peeves, and this is probably why I'm so disciplined, I haven't always been good at discipline. I can share a little bit more about that. I'll take a little break from the tip for a second. I haven't always been disciplined. So I don't want you to watch this and think like this girl's just naturally disciplined. No, I grew into my discipline. I actually really honed in on the skill. I remember so many times where I realized if I don't follow through on things, if I don't do what I say I'm going to do, who's going to show up and do that for myself? Now, I think it comes from my childhood. So I kind of got into this in my Reinvent Yourself podcast episode, but I might not have gone like in super depth, but my childhood was kind of a bit all over the place. So I grew up with my mom and dad for like the first 5 years. And then my dad left when I was 5. I just vividly remember. That's one of my earliest memories, which sounds traumatic, but like I've healed through it. But one of my earliest memories was him leaving. So from a very young age, I've seen that like people will leave. You will be abandoned at times. And like, at the end of the day, you only have yourself. And that showed up again when I was 12 and I ended up moving out of the home I lived with my mom and my siblings into my grandparents' home because it was just a better environment for me. It was closer to my school. It was more stable versus where I was living when I was with just my mom. And no shade to her. If you're watching this, mom, no shade to you. But it was just, we both know it was just like a better spot for me to be in. That's why I ended up moving with them when I was like 12, and I lived with my grandparents and they really raised me all throughout my years. Like my grandma was like my preschool teacher because I didn't go to preschool. So like I learned from her from age 4 up until when she passed away, right? She lived up until my, like, I think I was like 28 or 29, and she was a big influence in my life. So I lived with her for up until I went to college, and then I went to college. And after I came back home from college, I think I stayed home with her for like maybe a year or so before I moved out, and I've never been back, right? So I've been on my own since then. I've always been super independent, and I think it's because I had these shifts in my life where like people would leave or environments would change, and the only constant was me. And I was always in environments where people would be like, oh, where's your parents? I see you always with your grandparents, or you're always with your aunt and uncle, or like, where's that normal dynamic that people usually have? I didn't necessarily always have that or ever felt like I had that. And as a kid, it bothered me a lot, but now I see as an adult, it actually helped me to be really independent, to be really disciplined, because I knew if I could show up for myself, I could change the trajectory of my life. And I've always been super passionate about that. I do not let my past deter me or hold me back. I let it fuel me. I literally think I named my brand The Fire Inside because I always had a fire inside of me. And it's something people always said about me. And I think that fire came from just realizing that things can change on a dime, that they can change at any second. You need to be the one to keep things together. So back to why this relates to tip number 1. I really am big on taking responsibility for my actions. One of my biggest pet peeves is the woe is me victim mentality. I disdain that so much. That mentality of like, oh, poor me. Oh, this didn't work out. Oh, this person's not helping me. Oh, it's the end of the world. Oh my God, I've been so disadvantaged. Oh, I grew up like this. Oh, like I cannot. If that is you, let that mentality go. I promise you that is one of the number one things holding you back. You are so stuck in your ways and so sad about things that have happened to you, that are going on in your life, that you just think are not fair. Oh, please. Life is tough. Get a helmet, as Candace Owens would say. Like, you literally gotta let go of that. You gotta let go of that woe is me mentality. Life sucks. Things don't work out for me, because it's simply not true. You are what you believe. So if you start taking responsibility, you stop blaming things, you stop making excuses, you start being disciplined and following through on your decisions, your life automatically is going to change like nobody else's. Your mindset is going to get so freaking strong. Nobody's going to be able to penetrate you because you're such a boss. And that mindset can come across a little cold at times. I've heard that before. Like, it can come across a little cold, a little like you think you're better than others. It's not that. It's just that you're different, and that you're learning that taking responsibility for your actions is the only thing you can do, because whatever happens to you, you always are in control of how you respond. So take control of every action you take. Practice self-reflection. Stop externalizing problems, and take control of every choice you can make in every situation that you have. That is something disciplined people do. We take control of every situation that we can and do what we can in every moment, and we let go of the things we cannot control. That makes you mentally strong, and that is how you take responsibility for your actions. That's just probably top thing that disciplined people do. Second thing that disciplined people do is they do what they say they will. That's probably what discipline essentially is. So they do what they say they will. That means their words and their actions always align with what they're going to do. Even when things are uncomfortable, even when confrontation may happen, it is showing up and doing the thing. That is literally what discipline is. It doesn't mean you do it in 100%. It doesn't mean you're doing your absolute like perfection every single time. That's not going to happen. But it's the important of this is that you have self-integrity, right? If you keep breaking your promises to yourself, it's going to really hurt your confidence. Your confidence comes from doing what you say you will. Your confidence comes from showing up every single time, even if it's not like the best ever, but just showing yourself that, hey, when I say I'm going to do something, I show up. When I keep trying at something and practicing it and doing it, I get better. That is where your confidence is going to come from. It does not come from waiting for it to appear or studying on nights and nights and nights on end. It comes from doing what you say you will. And you can develop this really small. Just start committing to something, whether it's tiny, little daily things. I'm going to wake up and brush my teeth. I'm going to wake up and make my bed. I'm going to make sure that I close my laptop at a certain time and be intentional and spend time with my family for at least 20 minutes a day. Like, start really small. Start showing up, doing what you say you will. And if you're not going to do something, stop saying you're going to do it. Oh my goodness. Probably another thing that grinds my gears, right? Another thing that I cannot deal with is when people just outwardly say things. They just say like, oh, I can do that. Oh, let's do this. Or they just make plans, or they make these like statements that they know they're not going to do. And maybe they had good intentions and they thought they would do it, but then they don't actually plan it in, or they don't actually follow through on it. And what that does is show yourself that you don't do what you say you're going to do. And people start to notice that. Everyone knows the person who talks about the things they're going to do and then they don't do them. And I'm not saying that we don't do that by accident. Like, you're going to have moments where you say something and then you forget, or like you're not able to do something and you forget to communicate it. Those moments are going to happen. I don't want you to be too hard on yourself, but for the most part, 80% of the time, you want to make sure you're doing what you say you're going to do, because that's going to make you become disciplined. And you have to start with doing that for yourself, because if you do that for yourself, it's going to show up and you're going to do that for others just naturally. Like, one way that I started doing this was, once again, of course, it's a workout example because it's like such a big thing in my life, but I remember when I used to say, oh, I want this certain body, I want this certain health goals or whatever. And I would say, I'm going to be in the gym at this time. I'm going to go run. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to eat this way. And then I'd do it for a little bit and then I'd stop. And then what I kept showing myself was, of course, you're not going to get the result because you're not doing what you say you're going to do. Like, you're literally not doing what you say you were going to do. So what else do you expect? If you're not hitting certain goals, I promise you there is something that you said you're going to do that you're not doing. You're not doing it consistently. You're not tracking it. You're not figuring out who can help you when you're struggling. You're saying you don't have the money to do it, or you don't have the time to do it, or you don't have the support. Excuses. Get it together. There's always a way. There is always a way. If you have the will, there's always a way. You have to work on those beliefs. You got to work on those beliefs, okay? You have to learn how to follow through, because disciplined people are doing what they say they're going to do. Number 3 thing that disciplined people do, they prioritize what matters. Listen, disciplined people don't have time for your mess, right? They don't have time to waste time. They know that time is their most valuable resource. It's not money, it's time. It's time and energy, your most valuable resources. So one thing disciplined people don't do is waste time on things that don't align with them. They don't waste time on things that don't align with their goals. They simply just do things that are worth their time. They do the things that are top of their priorities. They make sure that they plan in their priorities, they show up for those things, and then they let go of everything else, right? And they set boundaries in a way where they can structure their days that in a way that makes sense. Doesn't mean they're rigid and strict, but it just means that they get done what needs to get done, because they know that if they can prioritize things, get the things done, they have more time to do whatever the heck they want, right? That's where discipline comes into play. They use tools like time blocking or creating a daily prioritized list, right? They say no more often than they say yes, because when you say yes to things, you're saying no to something anyway. And we have to realize that, because that's something where I've noticed people can get real scared about saying no. They're scared about like doing something wrong or saying something to someone that they don't like. But at the end of the day, every time you say no to something, you're saying yes to something that matters to you. And every time you say yes to something that doesn't matter to you, you're saying no to something that does, right? So think through, what am I saying yes to? What am I saying no to? What do I need to set better boundaries or rules up for so that I can follow through on the things I say I'm going to do? How can I learn how to prioritize better? Do I need to incorporate some more prioritization methods, which is something that I teach my clients, and I'd be happy to give you my Prioritize Like a Pro guide. I'll leave that in the show notes so you can start prioritizing your tasks. You cannot simply be living off a to-do list. To-do lists are unorganized brain dumps that are going to get you nowhere. When you have 50 million things on a sheet of paper or on Post-its, you're not going to get anything done because you have no direction. You have no priorities. You're not showing yourself what needs to get done when. So that's why it's not getting done, because what gets scheduled gets done. Disciplined people prioritize what matters most to them, not what they think matters most to them because they're a mom or because they're a wife or because they're a friend or because they're a sister. They prioritize what matters most to them because they're in tune with themselves. They're aware of what matters. They're aware of their values and their core beliefs, and they make sure their actions align with those things. 4th thing disciplined people do, they're consistent based on their own metrics. Consistency doesn't equal 100%. I don't know how many times I can say that. It's like one of my favorite things to share, because it does not equal 100%. I always say that more often than not, you want to be doing the thing that you say you're going to do, right? So that means that maybe 60%, 70%, 80% of the time you're doing what you say you're going to do. And what I mean by that is, if you say I want to consistently meditate, it may not be every day for you. Maybe you want to do it 5 out of 7 days, and that's what consistency is for you. Then do that. Because I know some people don't like to have set routines on the weekend. Don't do that. Don't do that then. Have your set routines during the week. For me, If I say I'm going to meditate, I most likely like to do it every single day. It's just something that works well for me. But for me, working out, I'm not necessarily doing that every day. I'm not in the gym every day, but I know I'm in the gym 3 to 4 times a week, and I know I'm at least moving my body every day in some capacity, whether it's doing something around the house or going for a walk. You figure out in the different areas of your life, in your business, in your work life, in your personal life, in your relationships, your wellness, your fitness, whatever. What does consistency look like for you? Define it, know what it looks like, track it. It's really that simple. Is it hard in practice? Yeah, for a lot of people it is. And that's why I'm a time management coach and I help people to do that. But motivation will fade. Disciplined people, don't let that deter them, because they keep showing up, because they know that discipline is the ultimate form of self-love. And the way you can show yourself that you care about yourself, that you mean what you say, that you essentially just mean business, and that you're a boss and you're the master of your life, is by showing up over and over again, even when you don't want to, even when your mind is telling you not to. And I've gone over a whole bunch of tips in other past episodes on how to push past things when you don't want to do them. But disciplined people, they create habits, they set triggers for those habits, they make sure that they remove any resistance, and they sharpen their willpower so they can show up the way they're supposed to show up. Disciplined people essentially have systems. They don't just rely on goals and a list of things. They have systems. They have processes that they follow. They make it super easy so that they can do things that say they're going to do. The fifth thing that people who are disciplined do is they have strong boundaries. They protect their time, their energy, and their focus, right? They don't let other people's demands derail what they have to get done. They don't let other people's urgencies become their emergencies. People will be quick to want to take your time, your energy, to make you feel guilty, right? But nobody can make you feel anything. Anything that you feel is something that you chose to feel. And I know that is hard. I know it is hard. And I always say, he who angers you controls you, right? So we have to realize that if we're going to be a disciplined person, we have to be really strong on our boundaries and really know that if somebody is angering me, or if somebody's making me feel a certain way, it is not something that they're doing. It is something that I'm doing, right? And what I mean by that is that you're always in control of how you act, you're in control of your actions and your attitude. So act like that. Disciplined people have set boundaries. They follow through on what they say they're going to do, and they follow through on their boundaries. They reiterate them over and over again. They make sure people show up in the way that they say they will by reiterating their boundaries again and again and again until people follow them, right? And this means not just in real life, like in terms of like in person, but also online. Have those strong boundaries on who you allow into your online and in person, in real life environments, because it's going to truly matter what you're consuming every single day. And that's going to affect you in terms of like how you're spending your time, the limits that you set around things, and like what you're able to get done. The sixth thing that disciplined people do is they embrace discomfort and they embrace growth, right? So discomfort is one of those things that's really hard to embrace, but disciplined people do not run from things, right? They do their best to work through things. Now, it doesn't mean that they don't let things go that they don't need to be involved with, because that's definitely what people do, because they set boundaries and they're good about their time. They're good stewardess of their time, but they lean in because they know that growth comes from discomfort. You're not going to grow if you're doing the same thing every single day. You have to push yourself out of your comfort zone, try new things, put yourself out there, and you have to do things that you're a little afraid of, right? Like, it's okay to do things that you're afraid of. You're always going to feel so good when you do things you're afraid of as well, because you're going to feel like, wow, I'm really living. I'm confident in what I'm able to get done because I'm pushing myself out of limits. I'm pushing myself past things that I didn't even know I could do. So when it comes to embracing discomfort, I want you to embrace failure. I want you to embrace failure in the way that you embrace success, because there really is no true failure. It's just things that you learn from. Maybe you didn't do so good on something. Maybe something didn't work out, but you can take that and create some more courage, create some confidence, take it and do something with it, right? Take it and grow. And I think we all know that, but we're not always willing to do that because we're so used to being comfy and living a good life. But if you're someone who wants to be disciplined, you're someone who believes that they are destined for great things and they want to live full out, then this is for you. This is why you're watching this video still, because I know I probably scared some people with some of these 6 things that disciplined people do, and that's okay. Maybe They weren't meant to be as disciplined as they could be. But if you're still watching, I know you are. And I want you to realize that fortune favors the bold. It favors the people who aren't afraid of growth, who aren't afraid of learning and developing throughout their entire life. And I was really inspired by one of my clients recently. He is a 70-year-old man, and he's still like, how can I be growing? How can I be learning? How can I be doing more? And that's what keeps your mind super sharp as well. Our minds are neuroplastic, meaning like we can always be learning and changing and doing new things, even in our old age. And I think it is so amazing that he's still doing that. And that's something a disciplined person does, right? They still are willing to have tough conversations, to learn new things, to push past things that feel uncomfortable, to push past their fear, to really just invest in themselves in terms of their time, their energy, their money, so that they can continue growing every single day. So really simple way to start doing this: reframe discomfort as something that is just growth, right? So maybe if the word discomfort or uncomfortable makes you uncomfortable, which it probably does, just see it as like, this is just a growth moment. This is a lesson. This is just something that's making me feel a bit uncomfortable, but it's for a greater purpose. And I'm going to learn from this. There's a reason why this is happening, right? So these are the 6 things that disciplined people do. I hope that this was helpful for you. I want you to, from this day on, decide that you're a disciplined person, because you're going to start doing the things that I talked about in this video. You're going to start showing up as that disciplined person, right? Discipline isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up for yourself every single day in the way that works best for you in that day. Start small, stay consistent, follow through on the process, and watch how your life changes. Because people think their life changes with one miraculous event. It doesn't. It changes with these small actions that you take over time. So which one of these traits will you work on? Will you start taking responsibility for your actions? Will you start doing what you say you will? Will you start prioritizing what matters? Will you start being consistent based on your own metrics? Will you start having strong boundaries? Or will you start embracing discomfort and embracing growth, right? Which of these 6 things are you going to start with so that you can eventually get to all 6? Because these are the 6 things that us disciplined people are doing. So now you know the secret sauce. So don't act like you don't know. Don't act like you don't know, right? Let's get going on this. Discipline is a skill that can be taught and it can be mastered. And if you would love assistance with this, past this podcast, you want to work with me one-on-one so I can help you become more disciplined, please go ahead and book a time audit so we can get that going. A time audit is essentially like a consultation where I can learn more about you, what you're looking to achieve, and see if we're a good fit for each other. And if not, I always provide resources to help you along your journey either way, because that's the type of coach that I am, right? Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, if you learned something new, if it was something that you know other people need to learn, let's push this out into the algorithms, right? Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, share this podcast episode with someone you know needs to hear this, because I promise you they're going to be so happy that you did. And if you'd like to connect with me, like I said, meet me in the comments or check out the show notes for my Prioritize Like a Pro guide and to learn how you can book a time audit call with me. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.